Hi, it's Dr. Steve from Misericordia University. Today, let's take a look at learned helplessness. This is part of Module 5 in TED 232, Educational Psychology, an undergraduate course at Misericordia University. At our in-person classes, we considered the expectancy theory of motivation. Through that, we found that motivation equals the perceived probability of success by the student. In other words, their expectation of being able to achieve whatever task they're looking at. So that times the incentive value of the success. In other words, does it mean enough to them? What's the value of completing that task? So their expectancy times their incentive, their value of the task. That's motivation. Now, what happens if a student believes that their attempts or their actions will ultimately, inevitably just lead to failure? This is known as learned helplessness, and it represents an extreme form of trying to avoid failure. As a teacher or as an educational professional, how will you deal with this student issue? Some strategies that you can use to prevent or alleviate this learned helplessness involve giving students opportunities for success in small steps. Start them small and scaffold them up, supporting them into higher levels of achievement. Give them immediate feedback after they perform a task. And use consistent expectations with the student and follow through to make sure that they continue working towards success and achievement. You can accentuate the positive. Build on student strengths. Remember to not praise students for their intelligence or their natural abilities, but rather praise their efforts. Accentuate the positive. Show them that they can achieve. You can eliminate the negative. Recognize a student's weak area and help them develop a plan to improve that area. You can start with the familiar to the student and then move to the newer things. Use techniques like advanced organizers. Use guided discovery. Use real-world examples. Start with what they recognize and understand, and then move to the newer material. You can also have students create and solve problems using their own knowledge and skills. Realize that a teacher's expectations have a lot to do with student achievement. Teachers can communicate information about their belief in students without even realizing it sometimes. Wait for students to respond. Give them time when you ask them a question. Realize that teachers many times have a tendency to wait for students whom they expect will achieve. Now, this communicates confidence in that student's ability to achieve, whether you realize it or not. So wait for all students. Give them all an equal chance. Avoid unnecessary achievement distinctions among students. Don't focus on that. Don't point that out. Keep that private amongst individual students. Treat all students equally. Call on students of all achievement levels. And again, spend equal amounts of time with all students. The bottom line is, communicate to all students the expectancy that they can learn and they can achieve. It will probably come as no surprise that the main source of anxiety in school is fear of failure and the loss of self-esteem. No one wants to feel that they look badly. Nobody wants to take a hit to their self-esteem. Anxiety can definitely block school performance. Anxious students are likely to be overly self-conscious in performance settings, such as speaking in front of a class, giving a presentation, doing a demonstration, taking a test or a quiz. But can anxiety actually be beneficial? Yes. Actually, a little bit of healthy anxiety can challenge someone to be more sharp and to achieve more. It can actually support their motivation. Most performers on stage, for example, experience a little bit of anxiety before going on. This keeps them sharp and on top of their game. Too much anxiety, however, can have negative effects. A good teacher or counselor will seek ways to reduce negative impact of anxiety on learning and performance. For example, a teacher can create an environment that is accepting, where people feel comfortable and the environment is non-competitive, or I should say competitive, not overly competitive or in a negative way, because gamification can induce some competitiveness, but that's a healthy competitiveness. Provide opportunities to correct or improve work prior to submitting for the final time. In our course, we have done that. Provide sufficient time for students to complete tests, quizzes, and other assignments. Failure to do that can definitely lead to higher anxiety. Think about what other strategies can a teacher employ to reduce the impact of anxiety. When we speak about motivation, there are two principal main types of motivation. One is called intrinsic, and the other is extrinsic. So an intrinsic motivation, it means that a person is doing something just because they like to do it. It's something that has meaning to them. And we find that intrinsically motivated students typically compete against themselves because they want to achieve. They want to do better. At Misericordia, we find many students are very interested and motivated to participate in service learning, some type of service. You're not getting paid to do that. You may not get a grade for that. If it's a service learning course, maybe you are getting a grade. But most people are doing service, engaging in service, because they just want to do it. Doing service is a reward unto itself. That's intrinsic. Now, the other kind of motivation, extrinsic, is doing an activity with the expectation of getting some reward. So in this case, a student who is extrinsically motivated, we find that they're competing for different rewards. They get involved in sports because they want to get a trophy. They want to get a sweater with a letter on it, and things of this nature. So they're looking at it and saying, well, really, that external reward is what I want. Maybe someone's doing better in school just because they want to get a better grade, and that grade is meaningful to them. Now, intrinsically motivated people may seek high grades, but they're doing it because they just want to do it. And a person who is getting extrinsic motivation may find that when they get a better grade, someone pats them on the back, praises them, maybe even gives them money or treats them to something. So really, they're not working just to get the grade, they're working to get that expectation of reward. So in my graphics, you'll notice I have a heart representing the intrinsic, and a present or a gift representing the extrinsic. Now, there's a lot more to be said about these two different types of motivation, and in different courses here, especially classroom management, and in some methods courses, we'll go into that in much greater detail. But these are the two principal types of motivation. And a good teacher will know when to use each of them. At times, it's good to add an extrinsic motivation, offer reward. We'll give the class some type of little gift of some sort. You'll get some kind of a treat. Something will be a benefit to you if you perform certain things or perform certain tasks at a certain level. Now, ideally, a teacher is going to try to build the intrinsic motivation, because that intrinsic is the most important thing, because a student looks to do the activity for the sake of doing the activity. To wrap up today's class activity, Let's consider how a teacher or educational professional can foster intrinsic motivation. Again, with the understanding that at times it's okay to give a reward for some task that's considered to be boring or something you just have to get through. But let's look at fostering intrinsic motivation. So on Blackboard, I've provided an article from weareteachers.com to spark some ideas. Scroll down to the section called, "So how can teachers spark their students' intrinsic motivation?" Read through some of those strategies and choose 2 to 3 strategies that would be important for you and that resonate with you, that you could use in your classroom. And then think, how could you implement, how could you utilize those strategies? So we'll contribute some ideas about this and as a result of this article, and we'll do that on Blackboard through a discussion board. So again, check Blackboard and you'll get more information on this activity. At our next in-person class, we'll debrief on this activity and we'll wrap up Module 5. Thanks for watching.